What is up, everybody, man? Hope y'all are all doing well. It it, it feels like it's been forever since I've been live, even though it was 2 days ago. But man, this is a week I have been waiting on. Mid-season around October, we start getting the real games. Let's just say that, man. I'm so tired of these, early season matchups that everyone says really don't matter down the stretch. But man, we got some really big games this week. Of course, the FCS game of the week. If it's not the FCS game of the week on every single platform that covers FCS football nationally, then I don't know what they're doing. Number one, North Dakota State hosting number two, South Dakota State on top of a lot of other big matchups, man. So listen, the way the show's going to go, as always, Walter Payton watch list. I'm going to show y'all how I would vote if I had to submit my ballot today, and also Buck Buchanan watch list. And also, we're debuting the FCS Playoff Bracketology 1.0. I did my best, man. Listen, I really did to try to predict. So, this is what I think would happen about right now, kind of projecting forward, but it's really hard to project from October 12th. But I kind of wanted to give y'all an idea of what the bracket could potentially look like as we sit on October 12th. And then of course we're going to go through some games and take live calls and comments at the end of the show. 701-779-9585. But man, shout out to my guy Scotty All Script, man. If everyone, I know everyone's already subscribed, man, make sure to go check my guy out. Roundtable coming Thursday as always. But this is going to be a huge week, man. But let's get into the Walter Payton watch list right now. We have a new number one. The number one has been Tim DeMorat all season long. But I think if I had to vote today, Lindsey Scott Jr. would be my vote to win the Walter Payton Award right this second. Completed over 74% of his passes, 2,100 passing yards, 27 passing touchdowns, only 2 picks, 5 rushing touchdowns. He leads the country in passer efficiency. And right now, if the season ended, Lindsey Scott would set a new NCAA record for the highest passer efficiency in history. So that's how good of a season he's having. He's second in completion percentage, passing yards, and passing touchdowns. And I don't know if you guys have watched him mature. So I know there's a lot of people in the chat that really follow their favorite team, their favorite conference or whatever. But if you go back and watch the film from Lindsey Scott at Nicholls State, I never saw this coming. When he transferred to Incarnate Word, I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I thought it was a step down from what Cameron Ward brought to that offense. And for me, he almost runs the offense just as well. And here's the reasons I have him over DeMorat, who has had an outstanding year. One, Lindsey Scott has played a top 30 strength of schedule and led his team to an FBS win. And right now also has the challenge of being in his first season in the offense and a first-year head coach who has never been a head coach before. I think Lindsey Scott's level of difficulty has been much, much higher than anybody else in this race right now, especially at the quarterback position. So Lindsey Scott would be my vote for number one today. Tim DeMorat would be second, 2,600 passing yards, 30 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing. He's second in efficiency, first in yards, first in passing touchdowns. The one drawback for DeMorat would be that his strength of schedule hasn't been as impressive as Lindsey Scott, and he came up just a bit short in that FBS game where Lindsey Scott led his team to a 2-touchdown victory over Nevada. And then my non-quarterback that I would have on my ballot is Jaden Sheridan, 932 yards rushing, 7 rushing touchdowns, and he's averaging almost 10 yards per carry right now, leads the country in yards per carry and rushing yards, and he's top 15 in rushing touchdowns right now. So Jaden Sheridan would be my non-quarterback vote. But my two honorable mentions, who would be fourth and fifth, I would have Shador at 4, and I would probably put Hunter Lipke at 5. And I have seen some people, including Sam Herder and some other people, argue that they would probably put Lipke about second right now. And I understand the reasoning, because they're saying, it's not just stats, it's also, who's the best player in the country. But for me, it is that. But I just don't think Lipke has the volume nor the pressure of carrying that North Dakota State team like some of these guys have. Like when you look at Tim DeMorat, if Tim DeMorat doesn't have a good game, Fordham loses every single game they play. If Lindsey Scott has an off day, Incarnate Word could have been in trouble in any of the weeks prior. And Hunter Lipke right now has not even established himself as the number one rushing threat on his own team. And so I don't think you should vote on Heisman's, on Walter Payton Awards based on NFL potential. I think you at some point what you're doing on the field this season, not projecting into the future, has to come into account. So that's why I give Lindsey Scott the edge. That's why I give Tim DeMore at the edge, Jaden Sheridan, Shador Sanders. I give all those guys a little bit more of a bump in my voting compared to right now compared to the rest of the guys in Hunter Lipke. So that's where I would vote right now for the Walter Payton Award. For the Buck Buchanan, we also have a new number one. I think John Pius right now has been the most interesting story to emerge in FCS football right this second. This guy is a true sophomore outside linebacker, edge rusher for William and Mary. 40 total tackles, 14 and a half tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, and 3 pass breakups. And we're not even into mid-October yet. He leads the country in sacks, leads in tackles for loss, and his 2 biggest games. I put a lot of stock in what do you do in the biggest games on the biggest stage against Charlotte in a William and Mary FBS win, and also against Delaware, a huge top 6 win for William and Mary. He combined for 6.5 tackles for loss and 3.5 sacks. He does it on the biggest stage, and he does it across from an All-American defensive end last year in Nate Lynn. John Pius, in my opinion, has been the best defensive player in the entire country at the FCS level, and I think he's earned this number one spot. And if he continues to pace that he's on, I don't know how John Pius doesn't walk away with this Buck Buchanan award. Now, Patrick O'Connell finished third last season, and he's going to make a good run at it. 42 total tackles, 9 for loss, 7 sacks, a forced fumble, and a pick. He's top 5 in sacks, top 15 in tackles for loss, top 30 in tackles. A complete resume there, but I still think the way Pius is dominating and stepping up on the biggest stage right now gives him the edge. Now, if Patrick O'Connell goes out in the Montana State game and goes just absolutely berserk, then you could possibly make an argument. But right now, I don't think Montana's had any season-defining games where Patrick O'Connell has been able to put that on his resume yet. So right now, I would say John Pius is the guy right now for the Buck Buchanan, and it's extremely hard for defensive backs to win. It's kind of a rigged system against defensive backs because it's really hard for them to put up stats. Maxwell Anderson at Weber State right now has been the best corner in the country at the FCS level. He already has 5 picks, 4 pass breakups, leads the FCS in interceptions. He's allowed a 32.9 passer rating and only 1 touchdown allowed, which was last week against a high-flying Eastern Washington offense. I think Maxwell Anderson right now has been the best cornerback in the country, and he deserves to be on this list. It's going to be really hard for a defensive back to win it. But if you've already put up 5 interceptions in just a handful of games, he has an interception in every game but 1. I think he deserves to be on this list. Now, Johnny Buchanan for Delaware, also Vandenberg for Illinois State are 2 guys that you also probably should look out for. They'd probably be my 4 and 5 spot. So that's how I would vote for the Walter Payton and Buck Buchanan. Lindsey Scott would be my number 1 vote for the Walter Payton, and John Pius from William and Mary would be my Buck Buchanan award winner. So let me get to these comments real quick. He said, poor Lamar. Yeah, if you're looking for that Lindsey Scott, in case you missed it, 400 plus yards and 7 touchdowns in the first half against Lamar. Man, I can't wait to get to Baton Rouge, man, and be down there Friday. Has the FCS stopped playing defense? I don't think so, man. There's still a lot of highly ranked defenses in the FCS, staying 27 passing touchdowns. I did watch them versus PV. I'm not an award guy, but it is fun seeing random guys put up numbers, especially the ones you wouldn't think did good. I agree, Dave. I love seeing stories like a Jaden Sheridan. I don't think many people, including people, didn't even think he was going to be RB1 at Monmouth this year. So we'll see. The pettiness, the pettiness for sure. Shador needs to throw 7 touchdowns this weekend. I agree. If Shador's going to stay in the race, he's got to go off this weekend. South Dakota State 27 and DSU 13. I like it. I like the prediction. We're going to get to that one. Let's see. I think he has some cute. He might have had a sack or so, but I can't remember his stat line on the top of my head. Jay, and Big Sky dudes are no joke. They're earning that one. Let's see. Bubba the linebacker, Bama State. He won. He won Player of the Week for me this week, Jay. But I don't think he's done enough to be on the Buchanan award list right now. I mean, he's had a solid season, but right now I probably wouldn't vote for him as SWAC Defensive Player of the Year right this second. So I don't think you. I think if you're looking for a SWAC player to be on the Buchanan award list, I think your best bet honestly would be Ronnie Thomas. Ronnie Thomas, honestly, he could get some votes. Do not be surprised if Ronnie Thomas finishes top 10 in the Buchanan award voting for Mississippi Valley State. He has had an amazing year, man. He's one of the top defensive ends in the country right now. The team's floundered, and I don't think he's had a year that everyone thought he was going to have. Wayne, I think it's been a little bit of both, where he hasn't lived up to the hype, nor has the team, and I think it's really hurt him. He said Lindsey Scott for Heisman. I like it. Seems like we had a couple HBCU players high on the tackle and sack list at this time last year. Doesn't seem like it's happening this year. Ronnie Thomas is up there really high. Also, Sonnet Boom, Lawrence Richardson from Morgan State has been one of the best linebackers, and also BJ Davis is pretty high up there too. There's some MEAC guys that are high on the list as well. Only reason I ask, well, you got to think, man. Yeah, because there's just a lot of new names that are emerging, and I think what you saw is that Cameron Ward, the past 2 years have been up there, and Eric Berry and Cole Kelly have really dominated the top of the list. That now you're starting to see new names, and I think you've always seen crazy stat lines on both sides of the football at the FCS level. So I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary, but yeah, they're putting up some insane numbers right now. Lindsey Scott is from Baton Rouge. I wish he would have transferred to man. Southern would be disgusting with Lindsey Scott at quarterback. I think BJ Davis can be in the running too. I just mentioned him. BJ Davis has been one of the most consistent linebackers as well. Ronnie Thomas is a dog. Bubba had a good game, but we have a bad habit of getting worked up over 1 or 2 games. Yeah, he had 17 tackles against, if I'm not mistaken, it was either the FAMU or North Carolina A&T game. Tim DeMoret for Heisman. Ronnie Thomas is a beast. Yeah, I knew his dad played at Southern. Shador and catching DeMoret. I mean, yeah, I think Aubrey will probably be somewhere on the watch list mid-season. I don't know when. I don't know. Craig Haley's the one that does the watch list. I don't know when it drops, but I would expect to see Aubrey be there somewhere. So FCS Playoffs Bracket. I don't know if y'all can see this. I just noticed that. Let me see if I can like make myself a little bit smaller here. Let me know if y'all can like even read that, and I'll try my best here. It might be a little hard to read. I ain't gonna lie. Let's see. So, but this is how I see the seedings play based on even this is kind of also exposing my predictions for this week. South Dakota State, I think, is going to be the 1 seed. I'll be honest. And listen, I'm gonna redesign this for next week. This is just Bracketology 1.0. I got South Dakota State, North Dakota State, William and Mary, Montana State, Holy Cross, Mercer, Montana, and Sacramento State being the seeds this year. The reason that they're the seeds, I think, William and Mary is going to win the CAA this year based on just kind of looking at the schedule moving forward. I also think the Big Sky is going to have multiple seeds this year, and I also think Mercer is going to run through the SoCon, and if Mercer wins out, I do think they slide into that 7 or 8 seed in the playoffs, which is just insane that Mercer is really going to be a seed this year. After I think this is the first preseason they've ever even been ranked yet, so that's crazy to me. And then for the first round matchups, so if you don't know how the playoffs work, I think they're always going to go bus rides first. So they're going to try to schedule as many bus rides. So that's 400 in some odd miles or less. And all in my first round matchups, all of these are bus rides except 2. And it's because the 4 teams in those matchups didn't have anybody within like a bus trip. So Weber State and North Dakota were the 2 teams that really threw everything out of whack. So this is what they would do. And Alex, I see your comment here. I think Weber State has a chance to slide into that 8 seed, but if William and Mary wins out, I think it's going to be a tough thing. It really depends on if Weber can pull an upset or two down the stretch. I just think their schedule is going to be insane. And so I just don't see Weber winning out, but Weber could make a run for that 8 seed. Let's see. I'm going to be the FCS fan that treats North Dakota State like HBC fans for JSU. Go South Dakota State. Lawrence, I think Holy Cross beats Fordham this year. I think their defense is good enough to stop DeMoret. That's why I have Holy Cross as a seed right now. So South Dakota State keeps second top spot. So I have them number one. That might expose my prediction for this week. But the first round matchups I have Southern Illinois versus Southeast Missouri State. Richmond versus Campbell. I have Campbell winning the Big South, and I have Richmond getting it at a large bid. I have Delaware versus Sacred Heart, Weber State versus North Dakota, Incarnate Word versus Austin P. I got Austin P getting that ASUN WAC bid. I think they win out potentially throughout the rest of the season. I think Incarnate Word wins the Southland. Eastern Kentucky, Chattanooga, and then Elon Davidson would be the first round matchups right here. So let's see. Sorry, cause the Big Sky teams are going to ruin that postseason matchup. Ron's about it, but you see the Grizz win out. Yeah, I think Montana has a better chance to win out right now, Daniel. I just don't see Weber winning out, man. The reason I don't see Weber winning out, Daniel, is because I trust their quarterback the least out of all the teams up there in the Big Sky. I trust Lucas Johnson more. I trust Malott and Sean Chambers more at Montana State as well. Montana State's going to win out, and maybe Sac State. MSU has probably the best schedule to win the Big Sky. Yeah, I mean, listen, man, this is made on the 12th. I do think he said is Valley or Grambling in your bracket. You're so petty. This is definitely gonna change week to week, but this is just my early predictions. And let me move this banner for y'all. The first 5 out, I think Fordham it's going to be hard pressed to get in if they lose to Holy Cross. Furman is going to be on the outside looking in. I think the loss to Texas A&M Commerce is really going to hurt the bid for Southeast Louisiana to get an at-large bid. Villanova and Monmouth are going to be the CAA teams on the outside looking in. So that's kind of where that's where I look right now. And just in terms of the bracket, man. So that's just 1.0, and I'm gonna put this up on the website so you guys can see that. But let's get into some week 7 matchups, man. We got the week 7 HBCU preview. I have Austin P getting the auto bid right now, Lawrence. I think Austin P has been the most consistent team, and that win over Eastern Kentucky puts them in a really good spot to even if someone slips up here or there, I think they're going to get it. And I just don't trust Stephen F. Austin to continue the run that they're on, man. They have been playing with fire, and I really do think Abilene Christian has a great shot to catch them in their second matchup. But man, Morgan State versus North Carolina Central. This game is tomorrow night. It kicks off on a Thursday night on ESPN2, I believe. And I'm excited for this one. Even though Morgan lost last week, I'm still extremely excited to see this Morgan State team play. And it's all started by Alfonso Graham. I was texting with someone from HBCU game day today about just Graham and what they've been seeing up there. And what this guy at HBCU game day told me is that he thinks that Alfonso Graham is the best running back in HBCU football. And based on his production this year, there's a really, really good argument for that. Alfonso Graham, 542 yards rushing. He's averaging 7.2 yards per carry this season, 4 rushing touchdowns, averaging over 100 yards per game. Morgan State has to try to establish their will and run the football. They saw what Campbell did to get North Carolina Central, keep them off the field, and 2, wear down an extremely undersized front 7. They're going to have to run the football because right now, I don't necessarily trust Carson Baker to go win them the game. He's been okay, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks, but he's completed just over 50% of his passes, and that's not going to get it done in against a very stingy secondary of North Carolina Central. I mentioned him earlier. Lawrence Richardson is a name to watch. He's been extremely productive this year, 41 total tackles, 2.5 for loss, has an interception, a forced fumble. He's all over the field for Morgan State, and he plays that Aubrey role for this defense. He's young. but man, his instincts are undeniable right now. But Alfonso Graham is the X factor. If Morgan State cannot run the football, Central's running away with this one. They are going to have to find a way to establish their will at the line of scrimmage. Now, for Central, it comes down to one man. Is Davis Richard going to be that guy? That's it. He's their leading rusher still, 6 rushing touchdowns, almost 300 yards rushing, and of course, he's been a monster at quarterback, man. Not 9 touchdowns over 1,000 yards passing. He did have those 2 interceptions against Campbell. He has to play a clean game this weekend. The question is, who is the biggest weapon that he has? Devin Smith has done a great job. He had the 2 touchdowns against Campbell, but I don't think Latrell Collier, Jamari Taylor, any of those guys have really emerged as a go-to option in terms of this offense and what they can do moving forward. On the defensive side, I've mentioned him repeatedly talking about this team. Khalil Baker, second in interceptions this year with 4. He's going to have to force some turnovers against the extremely inaccurate Morgan State passing attack. I think this is going to be not a trap game, because I do think Morgan is a little bit better than to be called a trap game. But this is a game on Thursday night that can be awkward for teams. Both teams are coming off losses. Central, of course, had a bye week last week, and we've seen bye weeks go both ways, where you could come in a little bit more fresh, but you can also be a little bit rusty. I'm going to be interested to see what Central looks like after that Campbell game. If they're here on a mission, I expect them to win this game comfortably. But if they come out a little bit rusty, man, it could get a little bit hairy in this game on Thursday night. But I'm going with Central in this one. I think they win a close game over Morgan State. Right now, if I had to pick a team to win the MEAC, I'm still riding with Central. I think when you look at the quarterback uncertainty across the MEAC, I trust Richard more than any other quarterback in that conference, and I still trust that team to get through the MEAC. It starts this weekend with the big win over Morgan State. Now, I can't predict this game, because this is the game I'll be at. Southern versus Alcorn State. This is it. Here's the question for the game, and I think a lot of y'all will agree with me on this: is which Southern shows up? Are we going to get the Southern that showed up against Texas Southern? Or are we going to get the Southern that showed up when they smacked around Prairie View last week? That's the question, because that's two different animals. And if you get a Southern team that looks unbalanced, that doesn't look motivated like you did against Texas Southern, I think Alcorn runs away with this one. But if you get the dominant discipline, the explosive offense that you had with Southern last weekend, it's going to be extremely interesting. But Sean McCray has looked great the past 2 weeks. The rushing game is starting to kind of pick up some steam, but the defense, man, is going to be the X factor. Trey Lang has lived up to all the hype. 8.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. Jordan Lewis too, three sacks, 4 tackles for loss this year. And Jason Dumas didn't make his debut, but really made his first impact last week. It's going to come down to whether Southern can slow Alcorn's run game. If you can force Alcorn State to have to throw the football and put the game just completely in Aaron Allen's hands, you have an amazing chance to win this game if you're Southern, especially at home. Aaron Allen right now, 60% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He has not been super efficient, but listen, Jarvion Howard, Agent Zero, I think what was it that Coach Green called him, the Purple Rhino or something like that. He's been the guy. 646 yards rushing, 6.7 yards per carry, 8 rushing touchdowns. If you slow Howard down, you stop Alcorn. Nico Duffy has been a solid backup, but I think you're seeing Howard really establish himself as the number 1 running back. Last week against Valley, he had 2 touchdowns, and 2 weeks ago, he had 300 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. But it's going to come down to just stopping the run. And they've done a great job at the linebacker spot and in that front 7, really developing talent. Terrence Ellis, Trevor James have been amazing additions to this team, or amazing up-and-comers on this team, man. Both have 29 tackles, 5 tackles for loss. They've combined for 4 sacks. They're going to have to get after McCray. If you allow him to be comfortable, allow him to be the dynamic athlete that we know he can be, things are going to be tough. Things are going to be tough for Alcorn State. I'm going to be interested to see which Southern shows up, though. That's the only question I have is what do they look like? And Varric makes a good point. Southern does have the number one rush defense in the SWAC right now. We have to stop the run. Let's see. I don't know what happened to the purple Barracuda. Southern plays like last two games. Yes, SU. If Alcorn QB makes third plays, it's their game. Alcorn State winning. There was some internal things for that Texas Southern game that's over with. We'll see if either team is for real tomorrow. We have been fooled by early season wins. I agree. This is going to be a game we're going to find out what both teams are. Jordan Lewis should be back this week. 300 of those 600 was in one game, wasn't it? He needs to come up big. I want Southern to win, so Alcorn people stop talking so much. Yeah, so definitely let me know who y'all have winning. I ain't gonna make a prediction. I'll be in Baton Rouge this weekend covering this game, and I'm really excited to see who wins because the winner of this game takes a significant lead in the West right now, especially with Southern beating PV last weekend. Now, Jackson State, Bethune Cookman. I think everyone kind of knows who I'm picking. You got Shador Sanders, man. 17 touchdowns, 2 picks, almost over 1,700 yards. I'm going to be interested though to see the balance, especially with. I know it's not. I don't think it's very significant because he's been playing, but that shoulder with that shoulder being a little bit sore, bothering him at all. I wonder if this is a game where they put the ball in Savion Wilkerson's hands, Santee Marshall, J.D. Martin, and say, we're just going to try to run this ball. We know we're the better team. And if if we get up by 14-21, are we just going to try to run the football and save Shador moving forward, especially with Campbell coming in next week? So that's the question for me is what the play calling is going to be like. On the defensive side of the ball, man, y'all mentioned Aubrey. He's been special. Cam has been great. Niles Gaddy is the guy to watch in the front. Seven tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. Also, an emerging guy has been Justin Reagan. I don't think a lot of people have been giving him his just due. I think he had 1 or 2 sacks last weekend, and he's really emerged as probably the second guy right behind Gaddy in terms of pass rushing. I think Reagan deserves more credit right now than even what Jackson State fans are potentially giving him. He's been extremely efficient in terms of rushing the passer and getting in the backfield. Now, for Bethune Cookman, it's going to come down to Jalen Jones' ability to not turn the football over. This year, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, just over 1,000 yards. And if Jackson State can take his ability away of being an athlete, he's averaging almost 6 yards per carry. If they can make him a pocket passer, Jackson State's going to run away with this game. It really is. I mean, Jackson State's going to run away if Jalen Jones becomes a pocket passer because I believe it's Quayshawn Bird. He's electric. 327, 3 touchdowns. But Jalen Jones is going to have to make some plays, and if they don't, this game's going to get out of hand. Amari Hill Robinson already has 2 picks this year. That's a first team all SWAC defensive back. He's been great. I just don't know where Bethune lies right now, man. They got beat up. They got beat up bad last week. Draylon Ellis and those guys put up, I believe, 41 points. They were also they also turn the ball over a lot, man. And we know if you turn the ball over against Jackson State, they're probably taking it for 6. And it's gonna get out of hand. So I got Jackson State winning this one big, man. I think Jackson State probably wins this one by 4 plus scores. If I just had to put a prediction on it, I think 4 plus scores for Jackson State this weekend. Now, FAMU Grambling, extremely interesting game for me because let's give credit where credit is due. FAMU has looked like a different team since that loss to Jackson State in week 2. They've pulled off multiple straight wins. Mooses look better, and the wide receiver right now, Xavier Smith, he's on track to potentially be one of the top wide receivers in the FCS this season statistically. And if Grambling cannot stop him, things are going to get extremely out of hand this weekend. And for Grambling, I don't know how y'all feel. This is a must win in my opinion for Grambling. If Grambling doesn't win this game, I don't know what the season predictions for Grambling are going to be moving forward, because Southern looks like they've kind of turned a corner. You just look at their schedule, and I have a hard time finding some wins on that schedule for them, especially with Hawkins and Calvez going back and forth for the quarterback one position. Rash has been electric at wide receiver, but even with Maurice Washington quote unquote healthy last week, he had one of his worst games of the season last year. And so I just don't know where to put Grambling, man. I just lack confidence in what they're going to bring, and so I got FAMU winning this one 27-10. Uh, I just don't trust Grambling's offense to put up points. I think this is a game for Isaiah Major. I think this is a game for Isaiah Land and those guys to go get some money, man. I don't think Grambling's a contender this year, and I mean, there's some people who thought they wouldn't be, and that's fine, but I didn't think it would look as bad as it has this year. I thought they would still look a little bit better than what they have up to this point, man. But I got FAMU 27-10 over Grambling this weekend. Now, just for some FCS games, man, we're gonna cruise through these. That way we can get to your calls and comments, man. Incarnate Word Nichols. I put this game on here because this is Lindsey Scott's return to face his old team in Nichols State. This could be one of those games where you look at the end of the day and say, man, he was on a mission, because I think Lindsey Scott Jr., GJ Kinney is going to just open up the playbook and allow him to say, I want to win the Walter Payton, and I want to show you why you guys are going to miss me. And he's returning to Thibodaux, Louisiana, and he is going to put on a show, man. Kalechi Analabechi is probably in the, I would say, back end of the race for the Buchanan. But for Nichols State, they haven't played very well this year. They just got their first win against Houston Christian last week. Colin Guggenheim and Julian Gums have been solid at running back, but the inconsistency at quarterback, now that Lindsey Scott is gone, I just don't know if they have enough firepower. I got Incarnate Word winning this one convincingly. Now for Western Carolina versus Furman, this is a SoCon elimination game, to say the least. Western Carolina got absolutely their doors blown off by Mercer last weekend. Furman's right there on the edge of top 25 consideration. They're probably going to be in the playoff race if they can win this one and string together some wins moving forward. This is a must win for both of these teams. I think Furman has a better rushing attack, and I think the defense is going to be able to suffocate WCU's passing attack, similar to how Mercer did last week. Give me Furman in a close game over WCU. Let's see, Lawrence, I like it. Western Carolina over Furman 25-23. UIW favored by 21.5. Jesus Christ, man. I think they cover it. I would say take UIW by 21.5. Just in my opinion, but we'll see. My picks have been pretty good this year, but I don't know how they have been against the spread. I need to go back and look. But Montana versus Idaho is a game. It's a ranked matchup for me. I have Idaho at 25. This is a prove it game for both of these teams. A prove it game, and Montana, one of the few remaining undefeated teams in the FCS. And if you're a Montana fan, you have to love the guy pictured on this slide. Lucas Johnson has lived up to all the hype. Transferring in from San Diego State, Montana has just lacked a game-changing quarterback, and he's been that. 16 total touchdowns, over 1,000 passing yards. He's been electric. Marcus Knight finally showed up 2 weeks ago before the bye week. I think Marcus Knight has the ability to be one of the better running backs in the country. And of course, Patrick O'Connell is a guy to watch on the defensive side, along with Justin Ford and those guys. Montana has one of the best defenses in the country. And the Vandals, top 25 consideration, 3-0 in FCS games. Their 2 losses were to FBS programs in competitive games. Giovanni McCoy has been great at quarterback for them as well. 10 touchdowns this year. And Jermaine Jackson, almost 500 yards receiving, has emerged as that number one target in 5A, 50 total tackles this year at the linebacker spot, is going to play a significant role against this Montana offense. I like Idaho's makeup, and I think I said coming into the season, I thought Idaho was about a year or two away from really competing for the Big Sky. I think it's close early, but Montana coming off a bye week, Montana with Lucas Johnson in this defense, I think pull away late. Give me Montana winning this one 34-17. So Montana 34-17 over the Vandals this weekend. Now, I ran out of space on the HBCU slide, so we're going to talk a little bit about Harvard versus Howard. This is the, I believe, second annual Truth and Service Classic. They're having this game at Audi Field. I think that's up in DC. It was a soccer stadium, and that Howard is right now 0-1 against Ivy League teams. That you got to win this one. You have to win this one. You cannot go 0-2 against Ivy League teams, and it's just going to come down to the quarterback play. I talked about this since week 0. Quentin Williams is gonna have to be better. He just is. They have a solid rushing attack. Jarrett Hunter, the leading rusher. They still have James back there. They have a rotation of running backs, but they just don't have any quarterback play. And Harvard has been extremely efficient with the run, 501 yards and 6 touchdowns behind Aiden Borgett. And also the difference for me and why I'm going with Harvard in this game is the front seven. Thor Griffith and Nate Lezek, I believe it's Lezekovchek, 5 tackles for loss for him, 4.5 sacks. Thor Griffith plays in the backfield, man, almost 7 tackles for loss this season. And the Ivy League started 3 weeks behind everyone else. Give me Harvard 30-17, along with Alex Washington being a shutdown corner for the Crimson defense. I got Harvard beating Howard this weekend in Audi Field. Now, a handful of other games real quickly, man. A lot of these things are going to be in the article dropping tomorrow in our FCS predictions. Elon versus Rhode Island is a game that I'm extremely nervous on. I can see both teams potentially winning this game. Elon has been extremely hot. Wins over William and Mary and Richmond. Matthew McKay, Montana State quarterback transfer, has really been an electric piece of this Elon offense. Marcus Hillman on the defensive side of the ball is going to be a problem. 43 total tackles, 9 for loss. And Rhode Island, they have to assert themselves in the CAA race. If they don't win this game, I do think it's going to be hard pressed for them to find a route to the playoffs. And the Shields at running back has been explosive. Kasim Hill has to be more efficient, though, against a talented Elon defense. I'm going to ride with Elon in a close one, but I would not be surprised if Rhode Island pulled off this upset. But I think Elon has too much momentum, and I'm done doubting McKay, man. I think McKay gets it done, and McKay leads Elon to another close win this weekend as they march potentially into top 10 consideration after this weekend. Now, Sacramento State, EWU. This is a game I'm extremely excited to see. Eastern Washington is 1-4. But they've played the second toughest schedule in the country, and this is their second top 5 matchup of the season. And I don't know who signed up that schedule, man. They've had to play Oregon. They've had to play Montana State, Sac State. They've had just a brutal schedule. Also, Florida. The wide receiving core has to go make plays for Gunnar Talkington. Efton Chisholm and Freddie Robinson have been electric at wide receiver, but the rushing attack has allowed over 280 yards per game. And this is a Sac State team that has been extremely balanced, averaging over 515 yards per game, and they've done it through the air and on the ground. Asher O'Hara has been extremely impressive for me this season. And Cameron, I believe it's Scabibo, if I'm not mistaken, 539, 5 touchdowns. He ranks 4th in the country in yards per carry. Give me Sac State in a close one. A very close one. I don't see Eastern Washington getting their doors blown off, but I do think that they're able to keep it competitive. But I like Sac State as a team. I think the defense is too talented, and I do think the offense is going to be able to establish the run. And I got Sac State winning a close one over Eastern Washington. Now, for Villanova Richmond is a game that I don't know how y'all feel. Where would y'all put Villanova right now? I have them just outside my top 25. I just don't think Villanova has lived up to the hype this year. They came in defending CAA champs, and I just don't think they've had it. I think Reese Udinsky comes in as the best quarterback in this matchup. He leads the country in completion percentage, almost 80% completion percentage, 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns, only one pick. And he also has Aaron Dykes and Savon Smith at the running back spot, both almost at 300 yards. And you've got one of the best linebackers in the country in Tristan Wheeler. I do think Richmond comes into this one as the more talented team. And the biggest thing for Villanova is turnovers, man. Connor Watkins already 8 interceptions this year, and Jalen Jackson and DeWill Barley have been great at running back, combined for 7 rushing touchdowns. But Connor Watkins can do it on the ground, but I just don't think he's consistent enough through the air to win this football game. So I'm going to go with Richmond in a close game here. But I just don't know what happened to Villanova, man. I think they lost a lot of people to graduation, and I think they came into the season with extremely high expectations, preseason top 10 team, and they just haven't been able to put it together. So give me the Spiders in a close one. And finally, man, Mercer ETSU. This is a game that I almost went to before I locked in my my trip this weekend to Baton Rouge. I'm just going to keep this short, man. I'm just going to keep it as short as humanly possible. Give me the Bears big. I'm on the bandwagon for Mercer this year. Fred Payton has been amazing this year, man. Only quarterback in the country not to throw an interception, 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns. Austin Douglas has been great at the running back spot. And so far, Tyler Riddell has not been the guy. Jacob Sailors is amazing. But if you're one-dimensional against this Mercer defense, you saw what can happen last week. Give me Mercer in a big win over ETSU. And next week, man, I'm so excited for next week, man. I will be at the Mercer Chattanooga game. I'm hoping that's a top 10 matchup. I'm hoping the voters start putting some respect on Mercer's name. I think Mercer Chattanooga is going to be one of the best. It's probably the best game going into next week, and I cannot wait to be at that game. And finally, everyone knows who the game of the week is: North Dakota State, South Dakota State in the Fargo Dome this weekend. It is going to be a hell of a matchup, to say the least. And this is going to be a battle for who is number 1 in the country come Monday morning when the FCS Stats Per Firm poll drops. And man, this is going. I'm so excited. I want to be in the Fargo Dome so bad this weekend for this matchup. And so comment your predictions, man. Let me check the poll real quick, because I know I put a poll in the chat, and I want to see how you guys voted on it. So let me pull it up real quick. So we got 109 votes. 58% of the votes went to North Dakota State. South Dakota State with 42% of the votes. So a lot of people riding with the Bison, but it is close, almost 50, just over 58%. Let's see. South Dakota State. He said Montana State will eventually move into the Mountain West. North Dakota State, Jackrabbits by 4, NDSU by 3, NDSU over SDSU. Oh, easy, Lawrence. I don't know about easy. Okay, Lawrence, I was not expecting you to say that. So North Dakota State is a 3.5 point favorite over the Jackrabbits this weekend. I'm not surprised. I think you get 3 points, Jason, for home field advantage usually in betting. So it's pretty much a pick'em game almost. I like it. We got another South Dakota State here. NDSU is 59th in rushing defense. That and turnovers will be the difference. I like your thinking, Ron. So let me give y'all kind of my thoughts on this game. North Dakota State, I'm going to be honest, last week really scared me. I saw a lot of issues with North Dakota State last week. I think, you just mentioned in the comments, turnovers, injuries, man. They're missing a lot of pieces, especially in that front 7 for the Bison that play important roles in what they want to do defensively in terms of playing fast, playing loose, and they're missing a lot of experience up front just due to injuries. And when you look at South Dakota State, what they're going to want to do is run the football. Isaiah Davis is starting to come on strong, and I think South Dakota State, with Tucker Kraft coming back as well, it seems like these teams are going in two different directions. Where North Dakota State is dealing with injuries, kind of trying to figure out who they are, South Dakota State's going in the complete opposite direction, finding themselves and also getting healthy at the perfect time. And that is concerning. I think Isaiah Davis is the X factor for me. If Isaiah Davis can be the guy, get 100 plus yards rushing, be efficient, keep the ball with South Dakota State, and really do something similar to what happened with Youngstown State, where they kept that game low scoring because of Jaleel McLaughlin's ability to run the football. And I think Mark Gronkowski is a better quarterback than anybody on Youngstown State's roster right now. Mark Gronkowski, 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, only 3 picks, and he's a rushing threat. And the Yankee twins have been great. Zach Cons has been great at the tight end spot. But with Tucker Kraft coming back, I think that's going to be a major test for the defense of North Dakota State on how to try to stop him. The X factor for North Dakota State's easy. It's the Walter Payton Award, whoever, whatever you want to say, candidate in Hunter Lipke. Hunter Lipke, 6.5 yards per carry, man, 8 touchdowns, 480 yards rushing this year. You still have Tamarick Williams. You still got Kobe Johnson. Was it Ganella is still in there too? They have spots for that they want to put Cole Payton in. I'm going to be interested to see the creativity in North Dakota State and whether they can establish themselves on a very, very talented front seven for South Dakota State. That's going to be my question is, can the offensive line, who they have 2 of the top 5 highest graded offensive linemen in the country right now, can they establish themselves on a front seven that is extremely efficient for South Dakota State? Adam Bach is all over the field, 50 total tackles, 4.5 for loss, 3 sacks for the Jackrabbits. I want to see, can Caleb Sanders, can those guys up front, Reese Winkleman, can those guys stop the rushing attack of North Dakota State? Whoever rushes the ball better will win this game. That's how I feel. Let's see. South Dakota State will handle NDSU's run game. QB Miller won't be good enough to bail them out. SDSU by 4. NDSU is the FCS standard. They're actually good. They don't rely on hype and attention. Guys, Cam Miller's efficiency is going to be huge. I wish all you maniacs can be at the Dome on Saturday. Big upset about the Jackrabbits. With 6. Neutral will be negative. It'll be 1 point. Okay. Let's see. SCSU is overrated. They beat UC Davis by 2. I like these predictions, man. I like to see NDSU, SDSU, MSU, and UM all move up to the Mountain West. Disagree with you. Cam Miller has to hit something downfield in order to keep the safeties honest. Otherwise, SDSU's defense can just cheat in the secondary and run support. One thing I can promise, 28-6 SDSU. I like it. I mean, they're both going to have to take deep shots because both defenses are too good for them to load the boxes. If either team allows the other team just to put 8, 9 in the box, it's going to be hard to run the football. And man, this game's so hard to predict. And I'll give y'all my prediction, man. I have South Dakota State pulling off the upset. Give me South Dakota State by 3 this weekend in the Fargo Dome, upsetting North Dakota State. I just think right now I've seen too many inconsistencies from North Dakota State. I think South Dakota State and Isaiah Davis are able to establish the rushing attack due to some injuries on the interior of that North Dakota State defensive line. And South Dakota State is able to make just enough plays to come out of the Fargo Dome with a big win and be the number 1 team in the country come Monday, man. And I agree here. That's the other thing. I think right now I'm taking Gronkowski over Cam to miss one. So give me South Dakota State by 3. Man, I'll say 23-20 South Dakota State over North Dakota State this weekend, man. Y'all can call in. Let's see. 701-779-9585 is the call-in number. I'm going to take a little bit of time to answer y'all's calls and also answer some comments in the chat about any game this weekend. He said, I can't wait to pick Alabama for the Iron Bowl. Man, if you don't pick Alabama for the Iron Bowl, you're giving away money. Dave, I'll just say this, man. Take Alabama with whatever the point spread is over Auburn. Okay? I'm just going to tell you. Both MSU and U of M will soon have 45,000 seat stadiums and we'll fill them. the refs are always a factor, Lawrence. In any game at the FCS level, I think there's a lot of conferences that have ref problems, to say the least. The projected score is 25-21, basically. So my 23-20 is right there. Probably take the under, Jason. And especially with two good defenses like this, I'll take the under. Stonehill, what do you know? Not a lot about Stonehill. I believe they're new. I know they won a big game. What was it, 1 or 2 weeks ago, Jason? But I don't know a lot about the history of the program. But I'll do some research for you, man. I'll get you the rundown come next episode. Gonna send the SWAC refs to NDSU. Oh, Wayne, you're a problem, man. He said I'm picking Bama and I'm bored at MU. I agree. But man, let me give a brief recap for the people who just tuning in. Man, I got Lindsey Scott right now would be my vote for the Walter Payton, Tim DeMorat in a close second. I got John Pius over Patrick O'Connell and the Buck Buchanan right now. I got NCCU winning a close game over Morgan State tomorrow night on ESPN2. Can't make a prediction on the Southern Alcorn game due to me being there to cover that game. Give me Jackson State over Bethune Cookman in a big win. FAMU over Grambling. I got Incarnate Word putting up big points over Nichols, especially in Lindsey Scott's return to Nicholls State. Give me Furman over WCU. The Grizz over the Vandals in a close game. Give me Harvard over Howard. Elon over Rhode Island, Sac State over Eastern Washington, Richmond over Villanova, Mercer over ETSU, and in the game of the week, got South Dakota State by 3 over North Dakota State this weekend. And all the picks can be found on our website tomorrow morning, thebluebloodspod.com, with more breakdowns, more in-depth analysis on the website tomorrow. Let's see. Yes, and the plans have already been designed. They're upgrading all the facilities. Yeah, I think because if I'm not mistaken, Jackson got approved for a stadium this week too. So there's a few FCS programs that have new stadiums kind of in the works, to say the least. Let's see. Let me try to catch up on some of these comments from earlier. You said Richmond over Nova by 21. Gunner is not EB. That kid does not have the accuracy to keep the safeties from creeping up and helping in run support. That's a fair analysis. I can only root for Villanova in basketball. Sadly, I have Eastern Washington. Ooh, that's a big upset pick there, Lawrence. Idaho to a South Dakota State coordinator. Knows how to win with less. Idaho is 100 times better than I ever thought they would be. Yeah, they've exceeded my expectations by a lot. He said NDSU by 10. I can't even be Dave, man, you're killing me with that. I still got your bad bid. I'll just remember come playoff time though, SDSU is always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That's what me and Sonic Boom in the chat was like, man, I just don't want the Dakotas to win the national championship. And I was like, to be fair, like South Dakota State has never won a national title. And so he's rooting against South Dakota State to win the title just because of the success of North Dakota State. He was like, anybody but the Dakotas winning the national championship. But I agree with you, Dave. The playoff time is different. And I think anyone who's watched FCS football understands that there are certain teams that are ready to compete when it comes late November, in December, and into January. Wilson, as long as they keep winning. I don't know where he's getting the spreads from. Texas A&M Commerce or UIW. Give me UIW right now, Lawrence. We'll see. I mean, Texas A&M Commerce, this is their first year at the FCS level. So I think they got some room to grow, Lawrence. I think the win over Southeastern Louisiana was big, but I'm not one of those guys that think the transitive property rule always applies in college football. I know there's some people that love to use it. They're like, well, if one team beat this team, that means this team would beat this team and so on and so forth. That's just not how college football works. Every game should be taken as an individual game moving forward. And so I still think UIW is a better team than Texas A&M Commerce right now, but I am excited for the future of Commerce. I think their coach over there is great. He's been there for a good while, if I'm not mistaken. The defense plays physical, and they've really had a quarterback emerge this year, Lawrence, that I didn't see coming. They had a quarterback battle this offseason, and man, I'm blanking on the kid's name, Lawrence, but he's had an explosive year this year for Commerce, and he was a major reason why they pulled off that upset last week over Southeastern Louisiana. I personally know Montana State and the Yellowstone Club are linking up a lot lately. They get a full bar tent on the field for each game, try to get that big booster money. And they've never beaten NDSU in the playoffs. A big 0-for-6. I was about to say I thought they've played more than twice. Now I will say, Dave, I would root for that. If there's a way that North Dakota State, South Dakota State can be on opposite sides of the bracket, please make it happen. Because I would love to see I would love to see a big rivalry game in the national championship, whether it's North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State, any of those games in the Natty in Frisco would be amazing, especially with me traveling to cover that game this year. I would absolutely love to see that one in person because I want to because that's a long trip for me, man. Next year, I'm going to be at either North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and or Montana State, Montana next year. I will absolutely be at one of those games next season. I'm making that trip, no questions asked. At least one of them, and then the next year I'll go to the other one. That's two games I really want to experience in person. I got my checklist of big FCS matchups that I want to be at moving forward, man. But let me get to this first slide. So, man, I'll probably be on for another 10, 15 minutes. 701-779-9585, man. Call in if y'all want. If not, man, y'all can catch me after this on HBCU Nightly on Twitter. My guy Josh and Dr. Cavill and all those guys do an amazing space. And I'm going to be over there talking some football with them. So maybe Tom Brady could be SDSU, Nas, and MSU on opposite sides of the bracket. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, or MSU versus UM and Frisco. That'd be sick, regardless of which. Man, I know they usually sell out Frisco, but man, I can just imagine the atmosphere in both of those games. It would be one of the biggest matchups I think that the national championship has ever had in there. I mean, we'll see. Like you said, I think both there's some teams, even with Montana, has to overcome some things that have killed them in the past few years, and South Dakota State's got to overcome all the demons that they've had to fight in the playoffs. But it would be absolutely insane. I agree, as class. It would be insane to see NDSU versus SDSU in the Natty. I just like to see good football, man. That's the only thing. I'm hoping out of conference scheduling continues to work and we get some good matchups in the playoffs because I'll be traveling through the first few rounds of the playoffs anyway, and I've been kind of saving up my money because for some of those semifinal matchups, I'm going to try to make a trip to a huge game in the semifinals. Fordham over Stony Brook, big time Lawrence. I don't even think that's a close game. I think Fordham's able to pull away from Stony Brook. My heart couldn't handle the Cats versus Grids in the FCS championship. Man, as an alum of Auburn, I probably couldn't handle the Iron Bowl in the national championship either. So I feel that. But I think that would be a hell of a game this year, especially. Okay, so my question for Montana State fans though is going to be: I know we had a caller last episode that talked about that Malott should be healthy this weekend. It's probably going to take over the QB1 spot, but I don't know how you guys feel. I really do think, based on what I've seen over the past few weeks, I think you've got to keep Chambers in there in some capacity. Chambers has been electric this year. I just think taking him off, killing that momentum. I mean, he's leading the country in rushing touchdowns this year with 15 as a quarterback, and he wasn't even the starter through the first part of the season. I think Chambers has earned his keep, and even if Malott takes, I guess, the quote unquote starter job, you still have to keep Chambers in some capacity, I think. And okay, Dan, yeah, that was you. Tommy throw is a better passer. Said no way, Chambers is better. Let's see. QB should not lose job due to injury. Electric versus weak opponents. I disagree with you. Can't lose your job due to injury. It's happened 1,000 times. I mean, literally one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and Tom Brady only got his opportunity because of Drew Bledsoe's injury. I don't think you could say you can't lose your job due to injury. If you go down and the backup is playing better than you were when you were healthy, then I think you can lose your job. In my opinion, I think it's okay to lose your job due to injury. If the backup quarterback comes in and is better, oh, it should not. Okay, just can't. Yeah. it's a tough look, but you got to get college football is so in the age of the transfer portal, you have options. If I'm a coach, especially with the shelf life of coaches being 2-3 years, man, I'm moving. I'm moving on. We need to open up the offense as much as possible. I knew the Drew Bledsoe's comments were coming, but I get what you mean, Jason. It is a tough look. Can a Big Sky team get the number 2 seed? I have a Big Sky team in my number 2 seed right now, Lawrence. I have Montana at 2. Whoever wins the Big Sky, I think is a 2 seed. And I said this weekend, whoever wins the North Dakota State, South Dakota State game this weekend is probably going to get the 1 seed. I don't see either team losing moving forward unless it's like a shocking upset. Whoever wins the game this weekend will probably be the 1 seed. I think the Big Sky champion will be the 2 seed. The 3 seed will probably be the loser of the North Dakota State, South Dakota State game. And then the second place Big Sky team will probably be the 4 seed. And then you have an opportunity for 3 or 4 Big Sky teams to get seeds, in my opinion, because Sac State, Montana State, Sac State, Weber State, all are going to have resumes to be seeds this year. And it depends on who beats who, or if one of them falls off out of nowhere moving down the stretch. But you have multiple teams who I think could be seeds. So I think a Big Sky team is almost guaranteed a 2 seed right now, Lawrence, unless chaos happens and you just have a bunch of upsets randomly, like Idaho catches someone, or like a Portland State or someone like that upsets one of the top teams, or even like an Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington has some big games still moving forward, but I have confidence that a Big Sky team will probably be the number 2. Will be one of the Big Sky teams will be at the 2 seed. Dak might not get his job back. Wayne, I'm going to ask about that on the roundtable. I need to know if Cowboy fans really want Cooper Rush in there over Dak Prescott, because I'm going to be honest, I never thought that would happen. Never thought that would happen. Eagles fans still thinks we should have kept Nick Foles. How do you trade a man that won you a Super Bowl? Oh man, I'm a Dolphins fan. So listen, we haven't even sniffed what an AFC championship since I was born. So I can't have really a big opinion on it. Chambers will tell you how much Tommy helps them with the House Rights crazy offensive each week. That's fair. Just to point out, the Missouri Valley is a tough conference. It's not another round forever wins the NDSU game. To lose to a bottom team, it happened. It can still happen. I'm trying to think, Dave, on both of those schedules, because Missouri State didn't live up to the hype, and South Dakota State's already played them, and I don't think North Dakota State plays them. Let me pull up each schedule. We'll start with North Dakota State real quick. I need to look at their schedule because I was looking earlier. I didn't see a loss on there. So after this weekend, they play Illinois State, Western Illinois, North Dakota. Okay, the only game that I can see North Dakota State possibly losing, Dave, is that road trip to Southern Illinois on November 12th. That in Illinois. That's probably the game I would pick if I had to pick one, Dave. If they win this weekend, that's the only game I can see you guys losing. Now let me go to South Dakota State. So after this weekend, they travel to North Dakota. They got Indiana State. Okay, maybe the 5th with Northern Iowa, because traveling to Northern Iowa is always a tough game, and Northern Iowa always plays really, 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 really hard, and that's a road game for them. I don't know, man. I don't see a loss, but if I had to pick one, it'd be Northern Iowa. So Northern Iowa for South Dakota State's their best chance, and also SIU versus NDSU is probably North Dakota State's best chance to lose after this game. I would say those 2 games are the trap games on their schedule. Russ just holding it down till Dak back. How about them Cowboys? Oh, Kevin, hey, I like it. North Dakota versus SDSU next week. Yeah, I mean, North Dakota could be a team to watch out for. Big Sky's the hardest teams. Watch out for EWU and UC Davis playing upset the rest of the season. Yes, SIU and DSU. North Dakota has upset SDSU before. Northern Iowa is always a 2-17. Oh, Dave, come on, man. Daniel, Idaho is going to beat someone. Just wondering, have you heard anything on the city of Jackson approving JSU over 120 million for a new stadium? I don't know a lot about the story, Will, but I did hear they got some sort of funds for it. I'm interested to see what I want to see what Jackson State fans feel, because I've seen a lot of interesting takes. So I heard some people want minimum 50K, some want 60, others want like 35 with like some box seating and some suites. If anybody in the chat, I mean, if you had the decision to make for Jackson, how big would you make the stadium? What kind of like design or like features would you want it to have? Because for me, I think anywhere between 40 and 45 with some solid box seating, suite seating, and things like that would be the move. And especially if you build it closer to the field and make it, make it a little bit more modern looking. I think that could it could be a hell of a home field advantage, to say the least. So you can let me know how you feel about that in the chat. Uh yeah, I'll look it up for you, man. Real quick. Alcorn number one in stats. They probably are up there close, because I think they had 11 sacks versus who was it? McNeese. Alcorn is in total sacks. Let's see. Incarnate Word and Western Carolina lead the country in sacks right now with 24. Southern Illinois is third with 23. New Hampshire in fourth with 21. So Alcorn is in fifth with 20 sacks, but they're second in average sacks per game. So they're fifth in total sacks right now, JM. South Dakota upset SDSU twice before this year, and they upset NDSU in 2015. Goats have flashes of brilliance. This weekend fight, who you got, J Max or G? I mean, I can't pick that one either. Listen, I got to do a show with them at the game, Lawrence. I can't pick with my guys, but they look like they were training hard in that video, man. The creativity is ridiculous with them too. 60K seating. MSU will go back to the office they have. We'll see Chambers a lot. I'm excited to see what they do this week with both them back in the lineup. Good luck to any defense. Wayne just says seat backs. That's the only thing he wants is seat backs. 45K, 40K, 45K with suites and boxes. I like that. That's what I agree. You got to have some suites and boxes in there. At least 60K. 45K to 50K with box suites. Not this year, sir. With the ability to add. 40K would be perfect. 60K too much. 45K the sweet spot. No, we need at least a 50K seater. That's not, I mean, so I think the distinguishing factor when determining stadium size, it's going to depend if you want like the high end. So if you build like a 60K stadium, you got to be okay with not selling it out every week. Where it's like, okay, yeah, it might not look great when we have Valley come in, or Bethune, or some of the fan bases that don't travel super well or aren't going to be a huge draw. But when you have like a 45K stadium, are you going to be okay with only having 45K for the Soul Bowl or the Southern game or the boombox with Southern? But you're probably going to sell out more games. That's the question. Is because would you rather sell out more games or just have the ability to have 60K in for the huge games? That's the question, I guess, to ask on that. G is coming into Saturday riding on emotions. I'd pick him with the Braves lose. He had to make up for wearing SU gear and singing the song. Oh man, I forgot. Yeah, man. I can't wait. I can't wait for that game. It's gonna be fun in Baton Rouge. Shout out to G and them for inviting us down there. Hey, Blue, if PV would have beat Southern, if PV would have beat Southern if they had not started the fight, so we'll see the old Southern, because no fighting will take place. No comment on that. No comment on the brawl beforehand. But real quick, man, before I get out of here, the one question I do have for you guys, I was talking to someone about this. If you had to rank the top 3 FCS conferences right this second, in terms, it could be in terms of success, depth, out of conference wins, whatever. Like, who do you guys think is the best FCS conference, and who do you think are 2 and 3 right now throughout this season? In terms of on the field performance this year, just through the first 6 weeks, who do you think the top 3 FCS conferences are in the country? And then we'll end the show with that. 45K with enhanced ticket pricing for the big games with more home games. I like that. Definitely got to have a tiered system for the games. 45K with room to expand later down the line. So it looks like a lot of people are somewhat agreeing that 40 to 45K, maybe somewhere around 48 would be the best. And I agree with you. I think 40 to 45K with nice seating and everything like that, it would be solid. Let's see, we got the Big Sky CAA Valley, MVFC, Big Sky CAA. Sean, I got your question. I'm gonna come back to it. Big Sky SoCon. Ooh, the SoCon at 2, Lawrence. Now that you might have a point, because the SoCon right now has what? Mercer is top 15, Chattanooga's top 15, Sanford's right there at the top 15. The problem is you have the people who will look down on like the Citadel, Wofford, and things like that. But I like the SoCon pick there, Lawrence. I really do. I like the SoCon pick there. Missouri Valley, Big Skies, CAA. A CAA 1, Sean. Okay. Big Skies, SoCon. If I had to just pick off the top of my head, I think my number one conference right now would have to be the Big Sky. I think the Big Sky would probably be 1, just because you have, I think the top end is so strong, man. Montana State, Sac State, Weber State, man, all those teams are extremely talented. I think those are teams that all can make runs in the playoffs. And then I still don't think Eastern Washington is a bad team, man. They won their out of conference game, and I think they would beat a lot of teams in the country, especially even like in the lower end of the top 25. I still think Eastern Washington can compete with those teams, and even like a UC Davis, man. I don't think is a horrible team. It's just they've had such a brutal schedule. So I think the Big Sky would have to be number 1 for me. And then, man, 2 through 4, because I think the MVFC, the CAA, and the SoCon are all right there. Because the SoCon is so top, is so strong at the top, but I think the ETSU's fall off right now, and WCU falling off these past few weeks has really hurt the SoCon. But man, they are strong in that top 3, because I think Mercer, Chattanooga, and Sanford are legit contenders this year in the playoffs. And then for the MVFC, of course, you got your, you know who it is. The thing that's hurting the MVFC is Missouri State looking like they do. Missouri State looks terrible. And that was a team that I really did think would compete for in the playoffs this year. And right now, I don't think they have a shot at the playoffs. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think Missouri State is completely out of the playoff race. I don't think, one, they have enough quality games left on their schedule to rebound. And man, they've lost every important game that they were supposed to win. And the loss to North Dakota, I think, was kind of like the nail in the coffin for their resume. Missouri, Big Sky CAA, MVFC, Big Sky SoCon. I like it. I like it, Wayne. Tennessee and Syracuse getting the big wins, according to my guy Wayne. If prom is involved, he has prom top section, which is on the field. Big Sky, SoCon, CAA. Actually, I changed my pick. Missouri Valley and Big Sky flip number 1 and 2 weekly. I'll give Big Sky 1 this week, but it can change quickly, especially in November and January. Big Sky and VFC CAA. What are the take or percent our conference is taking from team games? My understanding is the SWAC is taking 40%. I have to do some research. Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the conferences are taking from other what, you know, like the MVFC Big Sky are taking from teams. I'll do some research though and get back to you. But yeah, 40% seems kind of high. I'm not gonna lie. But I don't know off the top of my head what the other FCS conferences are doing. I'll cut out Ida. They're the last Big Sky to win in Frisco. Okay, question, because they have the second hardest schedule in the country right now, in terms of Eastern Washington, in case you don't know what he meant by EW. If Eastern Washington found a way to win out, do they get in the playoffs? That's my question for the chat. Do they get in the playoffs? Let me pull up their schedule real quick, because this has been something I was thinking about with how tough that just their road has been. If they beat Sac State, and this is including a win over Sac State. So right now they're sitting at 1 and 4. They got a win over Tennessee State, losses to Oregon and Florida, a 3-point loss to Montana State, a loss to Weber. If they win out, they would have wins over Sac State, a win over Cal Poly, a win over Portland State, a win over Idaho, a win on the road at Montana, and a win over Northern Colorado. So they would be 6-4 with that, because for me, when I look at, even though they've played a difficult schedule early, I don't see enough big wins, because I don't think Northern Colorado and teams like that are gonna count very much for their playoff resume. So I think Eastern Washington is eliminated from playoff contention right now. So I just want to see how y'all felt about that, because someone asked me in the DMs if I had to if I would have put them in it. So they would have wins over 2 top 5 teams in Sac State and Montana, but I don't know about the other wins. Ron said no. Daniel no. Ron said it ain't happening though. Eastern Washington has to get a spot. If they went out, change my mind. So Aaron, I think the winner of the CAA is going to get a seed. But no, Elon's in the playoffs, Aaron. I think Elon, unless they just like lose out of nowhere, Elon's in the playoffs. And I think if Elon finds a way to win the CAA, they could slide into that 8 or 7 spot and get a seed. Whoever wins the CAA, I think, gets either the 7 or 8 seed. I think Mercer is going to be in that running by winning the SoCon if they win out, or if even Chattanooga wins out, they could be in that running. But Weber State is going to make a run, I think, at a seed as well. But no, Elon's in the playoffs right now, Aaron, unless just everything falls apart. I mean, you look, they have wins over Richmond, wins over William and Mary. Let's see what the rest of their schedule looks like. But no, I have Elon in my bracket right now. Let's see. So right now, Elon is sitting at 5-1. Their only losses to Vanderbilt. They have a win over Wofford, win over Gardner Webb, a ranked William and Mary team, a ranked Richmond team, a win over Townsend. If they win this weekend, they'll beat a ranked Rhode Island team, beat New Hampshire, who could be ranked. They still got to play Delaware, UAlbany, and Hampton. If Elon wins out, man, they're easily in. And even if they lose, I think 1 or 2 games, I still think let's see. I still think they make it. Elon QB blows it at the end of the season and they don't make the playoffs. I know the QB. Yeah, I'm sure. I know you do, Daniel. I knew you had some familiar. He was pretty familiar. UC Davis and EW, you were done if they went out. I agree with you on that. MVFC only has 2 strong teams that they played this weekend. Big Sky 4. I agree, Lawrence. Okay, so you could I think the MVFC has 2 elite teams. North Dakota State, South Dakota State. I do think they have 2 very good teams in, or at least one in Southern Illinois, and also North Dakota has been pretty solid. So I think you're right. Big Sky has more elite teams and national championship contenders, but we'll see. I hate that we are halfway through the season, man. I hate that it's week 7. I was getting ready for this episode, and I was like, damn, man, like I'm gonna have to get back to all season content soon. And I hate the off season, man, because you got to talk about just a bunch of storylines, what ifs, and everyone thinks their team's gonna win the national title. It sucks that we're already at week 7. I applied for my media credential today, Jordan. I should be at that game as long as I get approved. If not, I don't know where I'll be that weekend, but I'm going to try to be at Southern FAMU I believe it's November 5th. But honestly, I'm rooting for Matt McKay for some reason. You took the words right out of my mouth, Daniel. I would love to see that matchup in the playoffs. I would love to see it, man. Matt McKay and Elon traveling up to Montana State. I sign me up. Absolutely sign me up. I like the confidence. Tennessee beating Bama, even if Bryce plays. Does Shador have to put up 500 yards, 8 touchdowns? Probably. Because, Sean, like I said, I think Lindsey Scott's going to put up insane numbers against his old team, and Tim DeMorat's throwing for 400 yards a week. So he's going to have to do a lot. So upcoming road trips, Lawrence. This weekend I'll be in Southern, of course, Alcorn State, Southern. October 22nd, Chattanooga versus Mercer up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I cannot wait to see that game. October 29th, I'm debating. Part of me wants to go see Elon versus Delaware, and the other part of me wants to make that trip to Holy Cross to see Holy Cross versus Fordham. So let me know what you think, man. Should I go to Elon and see Elon versus Delaware, or should I go ahead and go see Holy Cross versus Fordham? Then November 5th, I'm looking at FAMU Southern and or possibly taking a trip up to Iowa and going to see South Dakota State versus UNI that weekend. Um, those two games are my picks on then. November 12th, I want to travel. Listen, there's a lot of games I want to go to on the 12th, but man, Jackson State plays A&M in my hometown. There's a lot of people that want me to be at that game just because it is where I live. So I don't know about that one. And then the 19th, it'll be Alcorn State, Jackson, and Lorman, Mississippi. But then the 26th, I'm going to be at a first round playoff game. I just got to wait on the bracket to be announced. So I'll probably go to, in the first round, I'll probably be at either a SoCon hosted playoff game or a Southland hosted playoff game, possibly an OVC, depending on who are the hosting teams in that first round. But the 26th, I'll be at a first round game. The next week, I'll either be at a second round game and or the SWAC championship. It just depends on if I can get into the SWAC championship because of Jackson's hosting. We all know Jackson's not approving your boys' credentials. So we'll see. I might just go to a second round game instead. The 9th and the 10th, I'll be at a quarterfinal game. And that's when I really want to drop a bag and try to make it to a big game in the quarterfinals. The 17th, I'll be at the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta. And then January 7th, I'll be in Frisco, Texas, of course, for the national championship, man. I can't wait for that game. I will be in Frisco this year. I'm hoping to meet a bunch of the other FCS guys and a bunch of you guys if your team makes it. So Dave, Daniel, Lawrence, all you guys, Ron in the chat. If your team makes it to Frisco, y'all better be there. I don't want to hear any excuses on why y'all aren't there. Y'all better be at that game. Let's see. October 22nd, Weaver State plays Montana State. CJ, I'm not surprised at all, man. I knew I told y'all when they moved up, I thought James Madison was going to be able to compete. Did I think they were going to be ranked? Probably not, but I'm really happy for James Madison, man. And I'm glad they're showing out. And I really do think they're making an argument that the difference between the top FCS teams in that group of 5 range is not very big. The talent gap is not big at all. And there's a lot of teams at the FCS level that could compete with the group of 5. I love the potential underdogs in the playoffs versus top teams who will be the 2013 Towson. So Holy Cross Fordham. I'll have to try to make that one work, man. I'll reach out to Holy Cross and might get that set up. FAMU SU, my pick. Yeah, I'll apply for my credentials today, Lawrence. That's probably going to be the game. Elon or Idaho. I don't know why I feel like Idaho is a dark horse. I don't know about Smash, but we'll see. I'm excited for the second half of the season, man. Listen, I want to come to Jackson. I've tried. I was going to come to the Campbell game next week, but listen, it is what it is. Politics in play over there, so won't be in attendance for homecoming. I was looking at potentially going to the Southern Jackson State game, but if I'm in Jackson, it'll be for the SWAC championship, and it'll be because I get credentialed through the SWAC because Jackson is not credentialing me because of some weird bias. I think it's because Idaho has been awful for so long. They're finally winning. Got a buzz with the fans. I'll always be in Frisco if MSU goes. I had the best seats this year to watch the destruction. You said the destruction. Yeah, man. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch. I don't know. I think if I don't know who I think is going to be there at this point. So the last question, man, I actually do got to get out of here, but man, I've enjoyed with these questions. But who do y'all think going into the season? Sam Herder, myself, a lot of people thought it was really North Dakota State and really and truly probably one or two contenders, maybe South Dakota State, Montana. How many teams do you guys think can realistically make a run to the national title, including North Dakota State? I mean, how many teams do you guys realistically can make a run and have a chance to win a national title this year? Because I think it's a lot higher now than it was coming into the season. JMU has been the team in Virginia for the last 5 years, bar none. If MSU hosts to the playoffs, we'll be back. If you're coming to see that Holy Cross game, you better be ready for that cold. I'm telling you, I gotta get a jacket. I got everything, man. But listen, it's gonna be freezing. I know it's only it'll be October 29th. It's still gonna be extremely, extremely cold. FCS title, FCS, Dave. We're strictly keeping it at the FCS level. So how many people you think can actually make a run? Ken should be able to help you. I might talk to him and see. I'm telling you, man, I was looking forward to it. 6, maybe 7 teams. I can see that. Possibly 6 or 7 is reasonable because going into the season, people thought it was going to be North Dakota State versus everyone else, or them or South Dakota State. Some people threw Montana in there. Honestly, none. MSU versus SDSU for the national championship. 6 possible teams. It's going to be a Big Sky MVFC title game. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Lawrence, but I do think the top 4 Big Sky teams I think could all make a run or have a team that possibly. I think Sac State, I know they haven't been good in the playoffs. Don't kill me on this, but this team has looked really, really solid and really consistent this year. So Montana State, Sac State, and Weber, I think all can make a run. South Dakota State and North Dakota State can make a run. And, a dark horse that I don't know, I want to get y'all's opinion on the dark horse. I really do think William and Mary has a team this year that could be really sneaky in the playoffs. I think William and Mary is a team. Like, if I had to pick today, I think William and Mary wins the CAA. I think Elon drops a game somewhere, and I think William and Mary has a chance to win out. I just don't know if I can go to Frisco. I wouldn't be surprised if William and Mary can make a run up to possibly the semifinals, depending on how their bracket looks. But I don't know what it is about them, man. I get a really good feeling about William and Mary moving forward because because my thing with them is they have a strong rushing attack, which is important in the playoffs. They have a really great front 7, and they have a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over much. And those are all keys for making runs in the playoffs. And so I like William and Mary, man. Don't sleep on them making a little bit of a run this year. Let's see. I think it's safe to say either Missouri Valley based Scott team will be in Frisco. Blue, I hit up Ken. He seems to be. I already got a game that week now, DW. I'll say this. I'll hit up Ken, and if I can swing something, I'll come to JSU Southern. But next week I'll be at Mercer Chattanooga. I've already got everything hooked up, man. Shout out to that. So I just want to kind of I want to walk y'all through the difference of the processes. So Jackson State's SID, I have sent double-digit emails and left multiple voicemails on his office phone. Just not even asking for a specific credential, just wanted to talk to him about the process. No response. I emailed Chattanooga's SID. He's out of the office. I get a response that he's out of the office and that as soon as he can, he'll get to my email when he gets back into the office. He emails me on his vacation or his day out of the office in 25 minutes and says, "Man, you're all approved. I love what you do." He was like, "What hotel are you staying at? Send me the address and I'll have it at the front desk for when you check in." That's the difference. And so I had the whole credential thing set up with the hotel and everything in less than an hour trying to go to that Chattanooga game, and I can't get a damn email response from Jackson State's SID. Explain. So that's the difference, man. But yeah, I'll talk to Ken. about the credential process moving forward. It's either in 2021 rematch NDSU versus MSU or STSU versus Montana. I'll call it now. That's what it'll be. I'm cool with either of those matchups. I would love to see South Dakota State versus Montana. I would love to beat NDSU at home in the semis. 23-7 Raging Cajuns over Marshall. Appreciate that, Sean. Richmond is going to challenge. Oh no, Richmond is legit, and it's all because of Udinsky. But I'm going to ride with William and Mary, man. I don't know what it is about them. Them and Mercer are two teams that really. I don't know what it is about them, man. I just think they have that it factor to me in terms of two teams that have historically not competed at this high of a level, and I'm interested to see how it keeps going, especially Mercer, man, because no one expected this from Mercer. Yes, Daniel, NDSU in -20 Fahrenheit. It may happen if they lose this weekend too. I don't care about the weather for NDSU at MSU. I like our atmosphere. STSU at MSU. I'm telling you, the atmosphere just on TV was insane. Daniel, just on TV. And I tell people, I don't think people give enough credit to the atmosphere of those Montana schools. They are legit. Those are FBS environments. Delaware versus Montana. Love to see that one too. You're a dome team. Blue, the only voter I know that comes to games. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Emory calls games, and I would love to call games. I don't have any experience doing it, so I mean, I don't think I would get a shot to do it. But I mean, I think I could be one hell of a color commentator because I got the facts behind these FCS schools, man. Big South or Southland, man. Put me on the call on one of these games, man. Give me a shot. But no, man, I love traveling to games. Yeah, I think a lot of the voters, they have other jobs outside of this Lawrence. And so, due to me being the producer at Auburn Live, it kind of gives me the freedom to travel on the weekends because I can do everything remotely in terms of my actual job. And a lot of the other guys, I mean, I think Sam Herder's traveling to the North Dakota State, South Dakota State game this weekend. But for me, I want it. I don't think there's enough actual in-person coverage of a lot of these FCS games. Like, when I went to cover the Alcorn State Stephen F. Austin game, I was the only national media member at that game, and I just don't think I don't think there's enough people actually putting in the work to go cover it. Like I want to, when I started this, like this FCS switch, I wanted to bring FBS coverage to FCS football, and I feel like I've done a pretty good job of that because even with the pictures I produce, listen, I'm not a photographer. Like guys, I bought a camera. My camera was delivered 2 days before I went down to Lorman for that Alcorn State Stephen F. Austin game. So all the picture editing, all the pictures, all the highlight videos that I've produced, all that was just on the fly. And so I think more people just got to kind of dedicate themselves to actually covering the game. I don't want to see the Grizz anywhere near the FCS championship. I hope they lose to 4 out of the next 6. Mercer is a dark horse. I'd rather see Blue at the games than Corso. Got to get Blue a big orange bus. We'll make it. Well, hey, we'll make it a big blue bus, man. A big blue bus. Bluebloods game day. I mean, I would love to have an RV, man. Tate, my Impala is booking it to all these games. Game day coach to Bozeman for Montana State. Montana. I think Southern loses Saturday. Man, there's gonna be a lot of sad people in Baton Rouge this weekend, to say the least. CAA has better teams than the others. That's fair. NDSU doesn't care about the weather. Their weather is the worst. The main reason I listen to you is because you actually watch a whole lot of games, sometimes in person. Yeah, man. Listen, you could talk to. I met with some of the Jackson State parents last weekend, and man, you could on Saturday nights and Sundays are all just film and watching and catching up on games that I potentially didn't get to watch live. I've really enjoyed this, man. My bad for the stutter, but I've really enjoyed this a whole bunch. But man, let me get out of here. I was supposed to leave 30 minutes ago, but guys, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, man. Stay tuned. Round table tomorrow, Coach's Corner on Friday, and on Sunday we'll have our FCS Week 7 recap from all the games. I'll have a highlight video out for Southern Alcorn State, some pictures from that game as well. next week, going up to Chattanooga for Chattanooga versus Mercer. Cannot wait for that one. But guys, until next time, the Blue Bloods are out.